and we love our band. Brendan Martin on special assignment today, celebrating his daughter's birthday, Universal Studios. We got Chad in here working with us today. Brendan and Chad, two very, very able producers. I love this. It's going to be fun. We got John Hartwell, ULM AD, on with us, and John is in transit right now, on his way to a big meeting. We're going to talk about Coach Matt Dean back from his son's wedding up in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Look, do us a favor. Take a picture with your cellular phone of the QR code, and we are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. 7 channels simultaneously every morning at the same time. And of course, if you don't catch us live, watch us at your leisure. We keep it under 60. Remember, the Reverend Robert Schuller, the Hour of Power. And we do it in under 60, which fits perfectly with your commute from home to work, from the office to the park for a walk with your dogs, or you go out for a bike ride. You can listen. So we keep it under 60 minutes. SEC, all 16 of us, and we'll talk about college sports around the country. John, we got some noise. If you can work on that background noise, I think when you start talking, it'll be better. But a lot is happening right now. And John, we've got meetings. Ross Dellinger reported. You know Ross, I believe. And I met Ross at Media Days in Atlanta last week and tried to get him on the show this morning with you and Matt, but he will be flying at the moment. But look forward to getting the Biloxi, Mississippi native on. John, what just came down in the last 24 hours is going to affect the meeting you're going to Baton Rouge for today? And tell everybody what's going on. And first of all, thank Matt and Chad for joining us this morning.
Yeah, I'm headed down to Baton Rouge, getting ready to cross the Mississippi River up here into historic Natchez, Mississippi. People probably say, well, why you're going from Monroe to Baton Rouge? Why are you going through Mississippi? That's the quickest driving route to cut the corner of the state of Mississippi there. But yeah, I am on I think there's 12 or 14 folks on this NIL task force that was created by the Louisiana legislature. We're having our first meeting today, and representatives from LSU and McNeese State and Louisiana Lafayette. We've got legislators and some student athletes as well on it, just trying to, and it's a moving target literally every day with additional rulings and judgments coming down, but we've got to stay flexible. And as we've talked about NIL for two plus years on your show, every day is new, and you've got to be flexible to change. And at the end of the day, trying to do what's best for our student athletes and provide them opportunities, and obviously a significant component, regardless of all the changes in college athletics, is all about recruiting. It's a little different, and the priorities are different today, but you're still trying to get the very best student athletes to give you the best opportunity to win on the fields of play.
Yeah, and I felt like in listening to all the coaches in Atlanta last week at SEC Media Days, it was we're on the other side of this. I think we are. I think we're getting, because the frustration of the coaches is obvious. The fans, you don't want the fans to go ballistic, and that's where we are. John, if you can hit mute in between when you're talking. I don't know if you've got a window down, but it's there's a lot of background noise. But if you can hit mute and then when I'm going to you, I'll point to you like that for the noise. But
yeah, will do.
Okay, Matt. And Matt, one of the things, you look at Oregon, where your son's on the staff. You look at the Sun Belt. You look at the Big 12, the Pac 8.5, the Big 10, the ACC. There's two big deals. Obviously, when about NIL. Then there's, do we play 8 games or do we play 9 games in the conference? Hearing what's going on in Louisiana, I'm sure there are meetings like that going on in states nationwide, aren't there?
Hey, good to be back, guys. One of the things, Rob, I was going to let you know, I was following Big Ten Media Days a little bit yesterday, and I heard from Coach Lanning. One of the questions by the way, Rob, I wanted to give you a shout out. I was watching SEC Network, and you had some great questions for some of the coaches during the SEC Media Days. So
Thank you.
Work. But one of the questions that Coach Lanning was asked by a media person was, hey, how are you guys navigating through this clearinghouse, whatever you want to call it, the Deloitte factor with approves outside of the budget? And he said so far things are going well, but he said it's, the paraphrase, it's a case-by-case basis, and we're still trying to learn how to play the game, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening, even to John's latest point, is this thing is going to change daily, weekly, game to game. I mean, we have a lot of going on. We've talked about this for a while, Rob. There's going to be a young person that gets a deal outside of the budget that gets turned down, and then what's going to happen? Is there an appeal process? Is that person going to leave and have the ability to leave an institution for another institution that has budget money under the cap? There's some things here, Rob, that we haven't really negotiated because there's no collective bargaining with these players, these student athletes, that are going to really have to still be addressed in the future. And I think the slope is really tricky with that, because one of the things I've learned, let's just use the number $20 million. I think what's happening is a lot of programs on the budgetary side, 70% of that money is going towards football. 9 to 10% of that money is going back to the quarterback room. So one of the things that's really important. So think about this. Let's say of the $14 million, let's make it $15 million.
Yeah.
That $1.5 million of that budget may be going to the quarterback room. Rob, you better pay your backup quarterbacks besides your starter. Yeah. Otherwise, you have the risk of losing them. And if someone gets hurt, you go from pretty good to bad really quick. You guys saw that a little bit of Auburn last year with the quarterback play, and I think maybe you've got it corrected. But I'm still really interested about John's perspective, just because he's an AD that's going through these meetings and knows a lot more than I do about this. I just think it's a real, this whole third-party vendor system, we're going to have some real interesting cases this year, Rob, where students were promised one thing and it doesn't get approved because it's outside of the budget.
Yeah, and I think if this happens where they say, well, you can't give them what you promised them, right, then we're going to see a deluge of lawsuits in the court system. And then I think what the NCAA will do, because they're feckless and spineless for the most part, they'll come out and grandfather in all the kids that were promised, and we'll move forward. Because you look at a school like Auburn, who's dead last in recruiting in the SEC. Why? Because they've had this approach, let's be real conservative. That may be on advice of counsel or whoever.
Right.
But don't do it. I say go full speed ahead. And if you got to take it back, you got to take it back. But it's hard. And then if you're Hugh Freeze, you got to start winning games. John Hartwell, come back in here with us. He's gone into the witness protection. There he is. He goes in that witness protection program with that voice like,
I'm going to tell you that the NIL is disgusting.
Okay, John, sounds much better. Sounds much better now. We did an interview one time with a great friend of our show, longtime broadcaster, in his car, and somehow the phone fell out of his cup holder, probably a WeatherTech, onto the floor, and we saw his nostril for the rest of the show going up to his nostril. So it's amazing to be able to drive and do a show at the same time. But John, we're talking now, we get into football. You have 17 coaches under your direction. That's plus you're like a father figure to every student athlete, because they're all going to come to you with problems. Do you get the sense in the case of Bryant Vincent and the staff at ULM and other coaches, God bless America, let's just play ball? And as the Gators have adopted the mantra, spot the damn ball. Let's play.
Yeah, and we're getting close to that. We had our media days down in New Orleans, was down there Monday night and Tuesday with Coach Vincent and two of our players. And, I think everybody is at the point now, coaches, student athletes, everybody, hey, our summer workouts conclude tomorrow. Our guys will get about 4 days off, come back for welcome back dinner on Wednesday night. It's time to, it's go time. It's fall practice starting, and we actually play 5 weeks from tonight, so it's here upon us. And I think, whether it's from a media standpoint, an on-campus standpoint, some of these things are continuing to evolve, but I think you're going to see more emphasis as we get closer to kickoff put on the actual product on the field, which I think will be welcome for everybody involved. But again, we've been talking about this for a couple of years, and I still maintain my my view that the real winners in this whole thing are the attorneys, because it seems like at every turn it's just creating another litany of lawsuits.
Yeah. Mr. Sip says, "Hail State." Oh, I like this guy, Mr. Sip. He's everywhere. Matt, all right, I got Phil Steele, who's a very cerebral man up in Ohio. His power poll for 2025. Now, I'm going to read off these teams.
Bring it on.
And tell me if you agree or disagree, but to me, it doesn't look that different from the same teams that have been the top teams in college football for the last 50 or 60 years. Number 1, Penn State. I'll believe it when I see it. Number 2, Notre Dame. Number 3, Texas. Number 4, Alabama. Number 5, Ohio State. Those 5 right there. I mean, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I mean, that's a fact.
Well, I'll tell you this. He's probably not wrong from a preseason standpoint. As you mentioned about Penn State, we'll see what James Franklin can do to change that for him, right? Yeah. I mean, he's had, and here's another thing. When you're able to pay student athletes, those schools have great history. They have great budgets outside of their NIL budget. They're going to be able, great facilities. They're going to be able to attract the elite of the elite. I really think that I got a few takeaways from SEC Media Days, Rob. We haven't talked in a while, and I just got to share them with you right now.
Yes, please feel free to share.
Number 1, Hugh Freeze seems very confident, but he has to be, right?
Yes.
He has to be, because this is a big year for Coach Freeze. I will tell you this. He's always been really good with quarterbacks. I think he can turn around Jackson Arnold. There's a great chance for Auburn to win 10 football games. 10. That's number 1. Yeah. Number 2, Stoops knows the end is near. You can sense it in he's been there 13 years. I will tell you this. When my son was at AM, Zach Calzada led them to a victory against Alabama when Nick Saban was king. Everyone's not talking about Calzada. He's got a really good arm. He's been banged up a lot during his career. He played through injury in that Bama game to help the Aggies upset the Tide. I'm going to be curious if Stoops can get his defense back. Can they win 8-9 games? I'm not sure if they're scheduled they can. Number 3, right now, I think Texas is not only, in my opinion, the SEC favorite. I know they didn't beat Georgia last year. I get that, but they are loaded. Now, I think, ironically, there may be more loaded on the defensive side of the ball than offensively. Even though we got Arch Manning coming on, everybody knows that Arch is going to be a really fine quarterback, but they did lose a lot of pieces. They had some draftable players on offense, leave them on the line as well. And I want to know this. Everybody is hyped about John Mateer, the transfer quarterback that goes to Oklahoma from Washington State. And all of a sudden, Brent Venables, after another 6-6 whatever campaign, is trying to do a little bit of the magic Hugh Freeze is doing as a defensive coach. Mateer, if he can have a good year, can Oklahoma, Rob, rise up and get in that 9-10 win range? I don't know if they can, but it seems like everyone is confident, not just Venables, but I'm telling you, some of the SEC analysts on the whole week really spoke highly of Mateer. who had a great year last year at Washington State, albeit against whatever competition they played in that pack, whatever, right?
Well, I did get the chance to talk to John Mateer from Little Elm, Texas. And you know what? It doesn't matter where you come from. If you're good, it's going to be obvious from the beginning. And I think that, John, you're driving along. This is like the David Letterman show. Let's go down and talk to Muji Bar and Siri Jill. Remember Muji Bar and Siri Jill that had the Wi-Fi store there on Times Square? Those guys were great. Hello, Dave. How are you? They were the best. John is our literally roving correspondent. Like, remember the old days? Charles Kuralt would get in that RV and go all over the country. I'm Charles Kuralt. We drive through the South and Mississippi and Alabama, and you get down on the Gulf Coast. You realize one thing: if you're eating frozen seafood, it ain't seafood, says John Hartwell. Hey, John, think about this football season. I just went over the top 5 on Phil Steele's Power Index: Penn State, Notre Dame, Texas, Alabama, Ohio State. Then you got Clemson, Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Florida. LSU's there at number 11, and Michigan at 12. And one of y'all, Matt, said it a minute ago, John, the quarterback room is eating up a lot of oxygen, a lot of the money. We don't know what Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player in the country, who was a commitment to LSU for a year, was paid. But we do know that Larry Ellison, the CEO of Oracle, has a net worth in excess of $200 billion. It's a lot of money. And his wife or girlfriend, whatever, likes the colors of Michigan. Man, how do you let's face it, you can't compete against that. But John, what's the NCAA? A lot of people ask me, is the NCAA, are they not buying green bananas anymore? John, yeah. John, we're losing you, but okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, on the end. Okay, well, I just think the NCAA, they have not won any of these lawsuits. So as we get into this football, I mean, Matt, look, you got Clemson 6, Georgia 7, Oklahoma 8, A&M 9, and Florida 10. You know what? Give me your top 6 teams in the SEC right now. Now, it can change. Guys get hurt in preseason practice, albeit we could have someone ruled academically ineligible. That, you know, and we could also see a dodo bird or a dinosaur on the way to work today too.
So top 6. I mean, I think my top 3 to start off with. I mean, I think I'm not gonna go 1, 2, 3 in here, but Texas, Georgia, Alabama. I feel from a roster standpoint, pretty fair to say those are the 3 teams that I would say are going to be the top 3, in my opinion. Now,
say it again.
Texas, Georgia, Alabama. Those are 3 teams that you can't argue. Now, Georgia has Gunnar Stockton, who actually helped them after Beck was hurt in the title game. Okay. I believe Texas has an unbelievable roster. And I think for the sake of Kalen DeBoer, he better be in the top 3 at Alabama. Otherwise, we could have some different conversations.
Yeah.
That's, you know, what's real interesting is I really like Florida because I love their quarterback. I absolutely think DJ Lagway is the man. I think they've recruited really well. I think they've really spiced up the wide receiver room. Another team that a lot of people, Rob, were talking about when you were at SC Media Days was Texas A&M. You know, they still have this year. They have to go at Austin, play Texas, and early on they go to Notre Dame. So if they lose to Notre Dame on a national perspective, that's going to hurt them. There's no question. Even though I don't care whatever Phil Steele says, I'm not necessarily buying Notre Dame at number 2 right now. That's just me personally. Okay. Then I look at Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and I don't know if I've left someone out that's obvious, but I think LSU got a lot of love. So I obviously have to have them in the top 6, right? I mean, there are people predicting them to win the league. There are people predicting them to have a shot to win the national championship.
Oh, yeah.
With their quarterback situation, Garrett Nussmeier coming back. That's obviously a great situation for their offense. I think the question with LSU, just to be totally offense, can they get their defense back to a situation where 30 points is enough to win a college football game, right? Because they've had a little bit of struggles. I will tell you this, Rob. I'm not going to list Auburn in my top 6 to start out the year, but they're one of the teams. If Hugh Freeze is right and Arnold has the year which he could have, they've upgraded the wide receiver room. You know that for a fact. They've got guys, they've got dudes, and their schedule is favorable, in my opinion. That's just my initial thoughts. And how can you ever rule out Lane Kiffin? We got to see how Austin Simmons turns out, right? I'm just really intrigued, Rob, by this season because I even thought old Eli at Mizzou was up there maybe spinning some magic saying how good Mizzou was going to be. I'm not sure I'm drinking the Tiger Kool-Aid on the Missouri side this year, but there are so many good teams. And, it's funny. If you look the strength of schedule right now, it's like 1 through 10 SEC teams. I mean, everybody knows that this league is loaded. There was a question earlier in the summer, Rob, we were talking about, I don't know if it was the SEC in danger of losing its, run or whatever. No, it's not. No, it's not. Because, even in the Big Ten, I want to go to the Big Ten, for example. You got Ohio State. You have Penn State, who everyone thinks Drew Aller coming back. They're the favorite up there. I will tell you, Oregon, this may be their best defensive team under Dan Lanning they've had in 4 years. Okay? And obviously, Bryce Underwood in Michigan, everyone's talking about the amount of money he got paid. He left LSU as a commit to come to Michigan from that standpoint. But from top to bottom, it's the SEC all day.
Well, and I think, and I'm just listening to a lot of shows around the country. I always listen to my friend Chuck Oliver and Heath Klein over in Atlanta. They come on 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. College football like us year-round. You look at the SEC. My top 6 right now, and I've got some border. You're not going to believe this, but I've got in no particular order.
Right.
Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Florida, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma. And then right there on the fringe, I've got LSU and Auburn.
Right.
And they're Connor O'Gara. I love Connor. Saturday Down South said on this show 3 or 4 weeks ago, he's got LSU to win it all.
I heard many people say that.
Yeah, and Connor's very smart. He's an Indiana grad, by the way.
I know.
Yeah, and he knows the Big Ten. And so I think that one thing's for sure, there's so much interest in college football, and you can call it clickbait or whatever you want, but the Big Ten, Petitti, the commissioner, he is in hiding. It's really strange the way they approach it. But you cannot underestimate the Big Ten TV market. Let's just call it what it is. It's 75% of the television sets in America reside in the geographical footprint that is the Big Ten. Now, Gary Stokan, I'm trying to get Gary on the show here again. We've had him on several times, CEO of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl and the Kickoff Classic in Atlanta Sports Authority. Gary is from Pittsburgh. He's been to Primanti Brothers. He's had one of those big sandwiches down in the warehouse district. But Gary played basketball, scholarship player, by the way, at NC State. Friends with Pete Cordelli, Bill Cower. It's a cool tree that came out of NC State. I'll say this. Gary pointed out the NFL gets about $10 billion a year in revenue from TV rights.
Yeah.
Second is college football, a little over $5 billion. That's bigger than the MLB, the NBA, the NHL. So we're talking a big deal. We're going to work it out. I don't like that term too big to fail. If a company's poorly run, to hell with them. Let them rot. But college football, the fans love the game too much. And I tell you what, we are on the other side of this stuff. People have got to quit. If you want a new reality, you got to get rid of the old mentality, because we've got people thinking the game is ruined. It's different. We don't have 2-a-days or 3-a-days, but if a coach is tough as nails right now, and well, you know what? I really think this is happening. I think we're starting to figure this stuff out.
Yeah.
And as we get closer to the season, you talk about Oregon's defense. Well, I want to ask you about another one. You look at Miami. Okay, Phil Steele's got them at number 11. I'm going to get John Michaels, who's part of the 680, the fan in Atlanta. John Michaels is a big Miami fan, but he also knows the ACC. He's at ACC Media Days this week. As Chuck calls it, it's a brown liquor and crab cakes event, very preppy. SEC is boiled peanuts and cold beer. You're damn right. That's the way we like it. I hope John can come back in. I think he just had a bad signal. But you know what? I see something happening in the SEC. Like you say, Hugh Freeze actually showed some confidence.
He did a lot.
Who could blame him with the roster he inherited? Now, he's got some issues with a couple of players gotten in trouble recently. One is gone. The other one is awaiting a hearing in mid-August, Malcolm Simmons.
Yeah,
but he brought in Eric Singleton, kid from Georgia Tech. Horatio Fields, a big guy. My friend Bill Cameron down in Auburn calls him more like a Evan Ingram type size and speed.
No doubt.
Go up and down the roster on these 16 schools, Matt. Arkansas, second year. I got a chance to talk to Talon Green. 2 years in the system with Bobby Petrino. Call him what you want. The guy can coach, Matt.
He can. So what's amazing is you look at Talon Green's numbers last year. The biggest thing that Pittman talked to some about this too was, the turnovers, right? In the red zone, they moved the ball up and down the field. They struggled in the red zone, correct? Yeah. Another team that we didn't mention here that's really talented is South Carolina. And I just went on their schedule, and I could see South Carolina taking the next step to get from 9 wins to 10 wins and contend, right? We're not even talking about Tennessee. I don't know. I think I was watching your show yesterday. You had our guy Vince Ferrara on.
Yeah.
That whole quarterback situation has kind of turned that team into a little bit of a question mark, but it could, just from a coaching standpoint, Rob, it could bring everyone tighter together. There's talent on that Vols roster. I don't care what people say. That's a tough place to play at. And you know that, obviously.
Hell yeah.
But I just think there are no, when we're talking about Vanderbilt, going to a bowl game and having a significant piece at the quarterback room, it's just amazing what they offer. And I've lived the Big Ten. I'm from Big Ten country. That doesn't exist. I saw up there with Mr. Sip. Yeah, you're right, Mr. Sip. Look at Penn State, Indiana schedules. Those teams, if you're in the top 4 or 5 in the Big Ten and you get a favorable home and away situation in terms of your level of competition, yeah, you should win 10 games. But once again, a 9-win team from the SEC with the strength of record, strength of schedule, to me is more impressive than like last year, even Indiana. I think Indiana was such a great story. Signetti coming over. He had flair. He talked a little smack until Notre Dame punched him in the mouth, right? And then it was over. But then, you look at their situation last year. They got punched in the mouth at Ohio State. They got punched in the mouth at Notre Dame. This year, I haven't looked at their schedule, but scheduling matters. And that's why the whole 9-8 discussion is really interesting, and I see where the SEC holds its ground because top to bottom, they are the tougher conference. So if you add a tougher game, yeah, I would have problems with it because go look at the Big Ten. Look at their bottom half. We just talked about Arkansas. You think you want to face Bobby Petrino's offense on the road?
Yeah.
If you're one of the top 4 or 5 in the Big Ten, it's a challenge. Yeah. It's a challenge, especially if they don't turn the ball over as much.
Yeah. Well, I do not underestimate the Big Ten, though. I've seen Penn State. I've seen them come down south in my lifetime many times and just abuse SEC teams in their home stadiums. Right. Pennsylvania is the number 8 state in America for producing high school players. And
and James Franklin could create a roster. That's never been a debate. Okay. Yeah.
But he's not winning the big games.
Yeah, I was there at the Big Ten championship last year, and Oregon punched him in the mouth several times.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, it's not that he doesn't win the big games, but in that you got to beat Michigan, Ohio State, and you look at Oregon. Oregon in the Big Ten now. That's what you got to pay attention. Oregon, Southern Cal, UCLA, Washington. These are some. UCLA has been in a funk for a while. Yeah. They had to join the Big Ten. I had heard they were 90 to 100 million in debt, And you just sit there and go, how does that happen? But they're in the state of California. They're part of the state university system. All right. Before Jake Wimberly joins us from Jackson, Mississippi, ESPN 105.9, the afternoon drive, let me show you something. The Turtle Box, all right? This Turtle Box, you can get them at Hewlett and Dunn on the Historic Square in Collierville, Tennessee. It's got a seal on it, okay? This little cap right here. You click that, and you hear it click. It can drop in the water out of your boat. You might be out on the boat having a few road sodas with your friends, which often happens. And some dumbass knocks the speaker into the water, and everybody's like, ah, not with a Turtle Box. And they got the small ones. I'll show you this one. This is called the Turtle Box Ranger, and that's at Hewlett and Dunn as well. And it's got magnets on it, so it can fit on a pole, on the metal plate in your head, anything. And the sound, you've never heard sound like you get from a Turtle Box. So Hewlett and Dunn, proud to have them as a sponsor. They're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And let me say something, too, before we go to Matt, about Landers Ford, where Germantown and Collierville meet. LandersFordMemphis.com. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you did. You probably paid too much. They're open Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Ask for our good friend. We love this guy, Brad Bellamy, the general manager. He's a huge Memphis and Alabama fan, but will love to talk college sports with you and help you get in a new vehicle. They will work relentlessly to help you get in a new vehicle. And they've got the 25 Expeditions there. They've got the Broncos. The women love the Robin Egg Blue Bronco, the retro Bronco with the white wall tires. They really look good. In fact, I saw one the other day when I was down in Mountain Brook. That's it, folks. That's the Bronco that they've got out there at Hewlett and Dunn. And the women love it because it's got the retro Ford across the front of it. LandersFordMemphis.com. And let me tell you something else. As you get older, you know what? You say, hey, you're 60. You're 60% of your goal to 100. How do you win? You fight back. Rumble Boxing Gym in Memphis at Union and McLean, open every day of the week. 48 spots in those classes, the punching bags, the weights, the workouts are 45 minutes. I'm telling you, it's like swimming on land. Rumble Boxing. Engage both sides of your body. Use your brain. That's a novel concept for some people. Use your brain. It works all parts of the brain. Love Rumble Boxing Gym, and follow them on Twitter and social media. Jake Wimberly, when he comes in here, what I love about him is he's got the matrix, Matt, all these rankings and these indexes for college football. And you think about it, picking the teams, it's just not that different. These teams that are good now, they're the same people. But, and I want Matt to hear this, when Jake comes on here, but you've got to think about this, and that is since 1990, you know how many who the last first-time national champion we've had in college football since 1990 is? Florida.
Wow.
In 1996. So it's hard to break in. Remember George Carlin? It's a club, and we're not in it. Boy, we miss George Carlin and his common sense. But look, okay. Chad, if you can go ahead and bring in Jake Wimberly. Jake, we are not worthy without you. How are you?
Yeah.
How are things in the bold? How are things in the bold new city?
Man, it's hot. Man, it feels like it is so hot down here.
Matt, it is so hot here in Memphis. I'm over here at the farm right now in Parkin, surrounded by flooded rice fields and bean fields. That makes it even 30 degrees warmer. I think it was 148 in the shade yesterday here. But that's life in the South. Jake, we had John Hartwell on. As Mr. Sip says, he looked like a storm chaser. He's on his way from Monroe to Baton Rouge for a big meeting on NIL with like 15 people in the state trying to figure out, hey, what are we going to do? but I also said, as we get closer to kickoff, 36 days, if you're counting from Auburn at Baylor, 35 days away from Missouri playing some directional school on a Thursday night. They seem to always kick off the SEC season. But Jake, let's talk about these Phil Steele's power rankings and all these other magazines that are out there. I miss Kyle Rote's football annual. I miss Street and Smith, but I'll take what I can get. I got Phil Steele with the magnifying glass at the lines. Talked to Lindy Davis. I love that guy. Saw him at Media Days. He's been doing it since 1982, something like close to 45 years. They've been putting out a magazine. So first off, thank you for joining us. And let's talk rankings. Let's talk football because everybody wants to talk about football.
They do. Look, we had Phil Steele on last week. Had a chance to spend 30 minutes with him, and love Phil's work. Love Lindy's work. There's so many good people out there that do this. I got to give a shout out to Brett Cianci at Pick Six Previews.
Yep.
Brett does a great job. Bill Conley. I mean, you can go around the horn. One of the things that I saw when we started putting in, and we put ours out a little early just because we want to start, kind of crunching numbers by the first of the year, is it looked like, 3 teams were going to populate, at least nationally, that was going to be favorites. And one was going to be Texas. The other was going to be Penn State. And the other was going to be Clemson. Yeah. And you're seeing a lot of those teams right now. Phil still picked Penn State to win the national championship.
I know.
Which I'm not surprised by that. I mean, look, James Franklin's got a really good squad up there. They've got the best running back room in the country, arguably, next to Notre Dame. They got one of the best quarterbacks coming back. Defensively, they return a lot. They got, a new defensive coordinator comes over from Ohio State. The Big Ten, and I think we've seen this week, Big Ten Media Days, the Big Ten, along with Tony Petitti and some of their coaches, and you look at the ACC, they've kind of circled the wagons on the SEC this week. It's been kind of funny to watch. But you look, Penn State is going to be really good. Texas is going to be really good. Clemson's going to be really good. But that doesn't mean that those 3 teams are head and shoulders above the field. We're probably about 10 teams deep that can win this thing this year.
Matt Dean.
I agree. And hey, Jake, great to be on the show with you again. It was interesting, Jake, when I was watching some of the SEC Media Days, I had not heard of Bill Conley before, but if you go down to the bottom of the agate there, Bill Conley had his, power rankings pretty prevalent to what the SEC was referencing to. But I agree with everything you said. And I think, it's interesting, people weren't talking about Clemson last year like they are this year, but that's how much people think about the quarterback, Clay Kubik. So I really think that first weekend, LSU Clemson is going to say a lot nationally for both programs. I'm curious to your thoughts on some early matchups. I still think I'm really intrigued, Jake, to Florida State hosting Bama. After Florida State went through a terrible season last year, can they bounce back a little bit? And obviously, Bama should be at least a 2-touchdown favorite as we head into that game. But, early games, sometimes things may not be clicking. New quarterback. I'm curious your thoughts on some early matchups.
Yeah, look, that Clemson LSU game could be the best one game of the weekend outside of, Texas and Ohio State. We'll get to that in a minute. But, yeah. When you look at it, and look, the LSU Clemson game is not an elimination ball game. I have both teams in my college football playoff, way too early picks. I think both teams can make it. You go with Clemson. That was the youngest roster in the country last year that made the college football playoff. They were very young across the board. And Dabo Swinney has stayed true to what he said. He's like, hey, look, we're not really going to play NIL. And, of course, they've done just a little bit of that. They bring Klubnik back. He's one of the best in the country. So I have Clemson in the national championship playing Texas this year. I have Texas winning it all. Surprise. A lot of people do. If Texas doesn't win it all, a lot of people are going to be wrong. But that's going to be a big matchup. Brian Kelly, it's a big year for him. Garrett Nussmeier, he's one of the top, guys, as we know, in the Heisman Trophy way too early. Heisman voting, depending on the book you go to in the shop, he's right there. So that's a fantastic matchup. Lean Clemson just a little bit because it's at home, but I wouldn't be surprised to see LSU win the ball game. You look at Ohio State, Texas. I like Texas going in there and winning. I'm not the believer in Ohio State that a lot of people are, and Vegas has them as the favorite. And the reason I'm not is just because they're so young. They're very talented. But, I mean, you lose a quarterback to the NFL. You lose 2 running backs to the NFL. They lost a ton of talent. Now, they're bringing back a ton of talent, but they're very young. 2 new coordinators on the offensive and defensive side. I like Texas in that matchup. And then, there's several other big matchups in week one that, that'll kind of set the table. And look, week two, you look at Oklahoma, Michigan. That's a game in week two that all eyes will be in Norman for those two teams as both teams try to bounce back.
The Big 10, Big 12, ACC, SEC. It's really those four. And then you got the other conferences. They matter too, but I don't want to see it become all just about the money. I mean, money's you got to have it, but football's got to be fun. It is still a game. Do you see any surprises, either of y'all, that we're not talking about? I mean, I listed my top 6 SEC schools, and that didn't include LSU, Auburn, or South Carolina, or Ole Miss, or Tennessee. That tells you right there, and the three of us know this league well. We know this game well. That says so much about the strength. Can you make a similar case if you were trying to pick the ACC, the Big 12, or the Big 10?
I don't think you can make as deep a case. I mean, just what you said. I mean, let's just take the top 3 teams at SEC Media Days off the table for the SEC. Georgia, not in any order, Georgia, Texas, Alabama. Then the next group of about 8. I mean, just who do you mean? I mean, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, South Carolina, Florida, Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's going to bounce back. Auburn, I think they bounce back this year. It's a smorgasbord there. I don't think any league is that deep. Now, if you go over to the ACC first, I think it's Clemson first, and I think it's Miami. Miami's going to go as Carson Beck goes. If they can play defense a little better, then they'll be right there. I think SMU's not going anywhere. They're going to be very competitive. I think Louisville's going to have a nice season as well. We'll see what Bill Belichick does at North Carolina, but I don't think any of those teams can win the conference. Whereas the SEC, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see Brian Kelly end up in the SEC championship game, or Texas A&M to finally make that next step. You go over to the Big Ten, I think they're 3 deep, maybe 4. I mean, if you look at Penn State and Ohio State, Ohio State will have a chance. I think Michigan will bounce back, and of course Oregon, what Dan Lanning has done is remarkable. I'll be very interested to see, USC and Lincoln Riley this year. This is a big year for him. They have done nothing but gone backwards since he got there. I think Brett Bielema and Illinois could be the Indiana this year. I don't think they can win the conference, but I think they're a 10-win team. If you go over to the Big 12, now the Big 12 may be the deepest league because I think they're about 8 deep that could win that conference. But that's, if you look at Vegas win totals in the Big 12, they're all sitting around 8.5. Literally about half the conference sitting 8.5, 7.5. So it's a wild conference. I like Texas Tech in that. But as far as overall depth, there's a reason Greg Sankey talks so much about strength of schedule in the SEC and the power of the SEC. It's because the conference is really that deep.
Yeah. Well, looking at the Big 12, Matt, Mike Gundy's been at Oklahoma State for about 20 years. He's averaged 9.5 wins a year. Last year, they go 3-9, just out of nowhere. That's the wild card in that conference. You look at historically what Bill Snyder, Lazarus is what he should be called, what he did with that program. I'm with Jake. It's deep. Last year at the preseason Big 12 media days, Kenny Dillingham and Arizona State picked 16th out of 16. They didn't even do a preseason poll this year. And we all know how those polls are. People are looking to catch a flight or get out of town on the last day, and they Christmas tree it like they're taking the ACT for the first time. So, Matt, along the line of what Matt just said, what Jake just said, talk about those teams.
Well, one of the things Jake mentioned in Big 12, I agree. Texas Tech, you look at the money they've spent on NIL, their roster should be pretty good. Okay, so we'll see how that plays out. I want to also go back to when Jake was talking about Ohio State. Here's what's interesting about Ohio State. You can make an argument with Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. They are the 2 best players in college football on both sides of the ball, okay? We all know that Caleb Downs originally was looking at Alabama, switched to Ohio State, was a big reason. And I think Jim Knowles going from Ohio State to Penn State matters. Probably matters more for Penn State, I think, because that maybe helps them get over the hurdle. But, it's really interesting when you start talking about these leagues. Like, Oregon, I talked to my son, Jake, who's the director of player personnel. They kind of like the fact this year they're the hunter instead of the hunted, okay? People don't know about Dante Moore. He was the starter at UCLA 2 years ago. He came back to Oregon, his original place, to stay behind Dylan Gabriel the whole year. And now he's, had that year away from an active role. And this may be the best defense Oregon's had in Dan Lanning's 4 years, who's a defensive coach. I think the Big 12, what's going to be intriguing to me, you look at Colorado, they lose the quarterback and obviously Travis Hunter. I don't know what their win total projected, Jake, but I see them take a little bit of a dip. I think the hype train may be over a little bit. And then historically, you mentioned Bill Snyder in Kansas State. I mean, historically, they have always been a factor. But I just think it's real interesting what Arizona State did last year. It goes to show you. Let's talk about Oklahoma State for a second. If I'm not mistaken, Jake, they may have had the highest influx of transfer portal guys to a roster in the country. I know a little bit about that because they play Oregon week 2 or 3. My son's in charge of scouting. So it's going to be curious when you look at Oklahoma State early. Are they going to give some people fits? Because I think Gundy's a ball coach, man. I love Gundy. I just think our new system doesn't fit certain coaches. You mentioned Dabo. He's been able to ride it out with some of these high school recruits that have gotten older. I get that. But you can make an obviously case to say that this has really hurt Mike Gundy, who's one of my favorite coaches of all time.
Yeah, I love what Gundy does. And, T. Boone Pickens died a couple of years ago. Before he died, I know he had given over $350 million to Oklahoma State. He was worth billions. Yeah. Now, within 9 months of the date of death, a 706 is required to be filed or extension. That's an estate tax return. I'm just curious what that money, how much is coming to Oklahoma State, whatever. But they've got boosters. Jake, you look at, I'm watching ACC Media Days last night, watching a lot of it. Tom Luganbill's on there, Mark Richt, Jimbo Fisher's now on the ACC network. Because these guys go from the ACC to the SEC, and then they go back to the ACC. I tell you, a team I'm high on is Georgia Tech, and I know there's something about Atlanta just with the Falcons just getting up there and then falling on their face. I think Georgia Tech can win double digit, this year with Brent Key. They did lose Eric Singleton wide out to Auburn, but they got everybody else back. They're good. I think Louisville is good. And I thought the job Fran Brown did at Syracuse. I see Mr. Sip. Syracuse is dark horse of the ACC. Well, they lost a lot. Remember, Kyle McCord transferred from Ohio State, but they won 10 games at the Qs last year. Give me some storylines in the ACC other than the usual suspects. But the reason I ask you this is because they play a lot of SEC, ACC games.
Yeah, and I think Matt had asked about Alabama and Florida State. I failed to mention that game. Yeah. You're a smart man, Rob Brown. Georgia Tech is going to win probably 10 games. I mean, that's where I've got. They are really good. Haynes King has found his footing, leaving Texas A&M. He had a really good year last year. Yeah. That is a really good ball club. And if you look at their schedule, it's a very manageable schedule. If I go back over here and I'm going to my ACC page, y'all can't see this, but if I look at Georgia Tech, they got a big week 1 game at Colorado, and I'm with Matt. I think the luster's probably wearing off Colorado right now. I think they go in and win, but they'll play Gardner-Webb, host Clemson. That'll be too much for them, but then they go Temple at Wake Forest after a bye week. They host Virginia Tech and go to Duke. They'll play Syracuse, NC State, Boston College, Pitt, and of course Georgia. That is a very good Georgia Tech team. I think they'll have an opportunity to be, in that 9-10 win range. For me, collectively, they have the best group of quarterbacks in the country this year out of all the conferences. If you look at their quarterbacks this year, it's not just Cade Klubnik at quarterback. I have him as their number 1 quarterback. Chandler Morris at Virginia is going to be really good. Carson Beck, Haynes King. Duke has a really good quarterback in Darian Mintz. Kevin Jennings at SMU played really well last year. We'll see about Thomas Castellanos, who has tripled down that they're going to beat Alabama. And that's going to be a fascinating ball game to watch. For several reasons. Yeah. I think Mike Norvell's a really good football coach. We saw what he did at Memphis. And, the question for me with Florida State is, are they going to be the 13-0 version or the 2-win version? And are they somewhere in the middle? And if Alabama lets them hang around a little bit, that could get dicey down there week 1. I believe Bama is probably a 10 to 12 point favorite in that game. But the ACC is a very interesting conference. I mean, Bill Belichick is going to be and his girlfriend, I'm sure, are going to be, front and center in the media. So there's a lot of great storylines in the ACC this year. You even look down at a team like Syracuse. I mean, Syracuse is a team that a lot of people feel like could be a sleeper in that league. I mean, Pittsburgh is another team. There's a lot of good storylines in that league. Unfortunately, that league is probably going to get maybe 2 teams in the playoff max.
Yeah, and I just got a text from our friend Gary Stoken down in Atlanta, and we all know what he does with the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, CEO, and the Kickoff Classic. He's in Charlotte at ACC Media Days doing interviews, visiting with coaches. Said, let's try for next week. So we're going to get him on next week. Gary, I tell you what, when I get him on, I'm going to have Brendan put up a picture of a Primanti Brothers sandwich from Pittsburgh. Have y'all not ever seen these sandwiches? They're just piled up with all the meat and cheese and then French fries stacked between 2 beautiful buns. A Primanti Brothers. And when you go to Primanti Brothers, that old lady, she'll come in. How many Ewens? Ewens. That's how they call it up in Pennsylvania. Okay. The reason I ask about the ACC, again, there's so many crossover games. I would like to see data, and maybe the 2 of y'all have it, or one of you, or whatever, we could find it, on regular season matchups in the last 20 years, wins and losses, SEC versus ACC, SEC versus Big Ten, SEC versus Big 12. Because the regular season matchups are far more indicative of what's really going on than some bowl game if it's not a playoff game. I think y'all would agree with that, which begs me to say this, that the SEC is being challenged. 17 of the last 20 national championship games, there's been an SEC school in there. But when you start getting lazy and complacent and you keep having to look out of the rearview mirror at your successes, you'll find that the magic that you're looking for in life is in the work that you're avoiding. You've got to keep working. You've got to keep pressing. And I'm telling you, everybody goes into Atlanta, and we all know the story. Georgia Tech is recruiting a kid, and then another school is recruiting him. They pull out a calculus book, and they go throw it at the recruit, and they say, all right, you're going to have to take calculus your freshman year. You got to pass it, or you can't stay there. But there's a lot of smart kids, and there's a lot of kids in Atlanta. Georgia Tech should have a premier program. Tradition-wise, they have a rich history. All right, guys, we got about 6.5 minutes left. Matt, your son's in Oregon. Jake, you do a great show in Jackson. We try this every year with the gloom and doom, Doug and Wendy Weiner. Oh, the game is ruined. Can y'all feel this momentum? We're 35 days out from Missouri playing some directional school. I can't remember who it is. But guys, not even the adults, as Tony Barnhart says, can screw this up, can they? Or can they? They can try. Matt?
I just think, initially when we dealt with this with the portal NIL, there was a lot of anger and people thought that the rich are going to get richer. I think what's ironically happened is I think you see more parity now, and some of this has really helped out some programs. And I'll give you a great example. The model that my son's familiar with. And first of all, I want to take a quick shout out to Haynes King. My son helped in the recruiting process of Haynes King at Texas A&M. His dad is a very successful high school football coach in the state of Texas.
Yes.
Haynes King, if he doesn't get hurt early in the season against Colorado, I'm going way back. This is after the Aggies went to the Orange Bowl, finished 4th in the country, had Kellen Mond, they lost him. That hurt that whole team. And the Haynes King I saw last year, I'm so happy for that young man. He is one of the best dudes I've ever met. I just want to say shout out to Haynes King. I'm pulling for him. But going back to this model, here's 3 words that this is what Oregon's using. It's all about retention. That's why you see some guys commit and decommit from certain programs, because they know they can't keep the retention side happy when they pay a 17-year-old too much money. So the teams that are wise with the cap, that manage their budget the best, and that's why I look at Texas. You know what's unique about Texas to me, Jake? They got one of the best offensive minds in college football in Sark. But there's an argument to be made. They may have the best defensive personnel returning in the country. They got the defensive side shored up. Sark and Manning's going to work extremely well. I don't know how anyone couldn't say that. To me, they're my national championship favorite. And it's hard to say that because I have a son on Oregon staff. But I'm just telling you, There's a lot of parity out there that people don't realize. That's why we can go through all the way to South Carolina in the SEC. You can make an argument. They've spent their money wisely. They got a tremendous edge rusher. They got a tremendous quarterback who's really hard to bring down. It's because it's fun, because now we have more stories. We do. 5 years ago, we had less stories. I think now some people get lucky in the portal and all of a sudden come out of nowhere. That's my opinion.
Yeah. And you know what? Having SMU be a factor, Jake, like last year. I mean, God, I had so many friends from high school that I grew up with in Memphis that went to SMU. And I mean, the Pony Express. And then we had some guys, I'm not going to name names because I'm not sure how the statute of limitations work, but Kitty transferred. He transferred back to play at Auburn. He was a fullback, and he was telling about his recruiting trip to SMU back in the early 80s. And he said Hugh Hefner would have been proud. I'm just saying, it was a hell of a recruiting trip to go out there. Jake Wimberly, I see you grinning like a cat, but with a mouse 5 feet from him, like Matt, my cat over here. He takes them out every day. But Jake, I just got this game, college football. When you drive through the state of Mississippi, you pick the state, Alabama, Louisiana, the pride. You know, pain's temporary, pride's forever. And you know, if you're a Mississippian, you go back to the fall of 2014. You've done it. You've been there. Mississippi State, I tell you, I liked what Jeff Lebby said. He's a big dude, offensive lineman at Oklahoma. Close us out here, and I'll let y'all both go with any storylines that we're not paying attention to that we need to be following in college football.
Oh, boys, storylines that we're not paying attention to. I mean, I think we would have to say, let's keep an eye on Arkansas. Yeah. And the reason I say keep an eye on Arkansas is what does Bobby Petrino do in year two? He's got a good quarterback back. They've got some nice pieces to that team. Sam Pittman is still one of those coaches that, we don't know that he's going to be back next year. So Arkansas is a team that quietly got to 7 wins last year. I've got them picked under the 6-win margin. Let's watch those guys. And then, of course, if you want another different kind of storyline, maybe peek over into, again, go back to the Big 12. I saw somebody on the text thing over here ask about Central Florida. We've got a lot of 2.0 coaches going on in the Big 12. I say we got Rich Rodriguez at West Virginia. What can he do at West Virginia in his 2.0 version? And then what can Scott Frost do at UCF this year in his 2.0 version? Yeah.
Hey, catch him ESPN 105.9, the afternoon drive in Jackson, Mississippi, Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. And what's your Twitter handle?
Jake Wim. You can catch me there.
All right. Give us a retweet. We'll do the same for you. Thank you so much, Jake. We'll see you next week.
See you, Rob. Good to see you.
And yep, absolutely. Matt, I love these storylines. There's so many. And yeah, Rhett Lashley was pretty fired up. But you know what? Rhett played for Gus, Shiloh Christian Academy up there in Springdale, Arkansas. He's coached at Auburn 6-7 years. His twins were born there. He knows this league. I like this. This is competition, isn't it, Matt?
It's great. I love what he said. And, at the end of the day, coaches are competitors. They're former athletes. They've been in that arena. And I'm going to give you an interesting storyline from my last point of the day, Rob.
Yeah. Got about 20
Tennessee,
seconds.
We're not talking about, but I think Nico transferring unites that team, and Heupel knows how to coach ball and quarterbacks. I think Tennessee's better than people think right now. That's my possible storyline.
I got no doubt. I am a big Josh Heupel fan. I really am. But look, great show today. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We're the most blessed people in the greatest country in the history of the world. Your honor is dearer than your life. Think about that. Go out there and find ways to help people. Spread the love of this game. Spread the love of this show and this channel. Chad, great job producing today. Brendan Martin with his daughter at Universal Studios. Have a great time. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We got a great show. And watch tonight, Buddy Martin show at 9 p.m. Eastern on this show and all the shows on our great channel. Thanks, John Boy. Good night. Or good day. See y'all tomorrow.